when we talk about evil, lots of times we'll call things like natural disasters or diseases or wildfires, tsunamis, we would call these things evil. But I would postulate that they're not evil in the metaphysical sense of the word, like the difference between God proclaiming something good and something being evil. There is, I believe, cause and effect in this world. Um, in other words, we know there's seasons, we know there's rainy seasons, we know there's floodplains, and I don't think you can blame God for the evil of your home or your family being swept away if you built your house in a floodplain. I don't think you can think God's out to get you because you built your house on a cliff in La Jolla and it tumbled into the sea. That simply kind of cause and effect of how this world works with entropy and erosion and other things. Um, if you do accept the Genesis account, after the fall, the world was under a curse. And so this isn't this Eden that God created at the beginning, but it is full of tooth and claw, of thorn and pain and suffering. And this is really hard to think about too. Um, if you're familiar with the entire story of the Bible, God did not leave us, though, abandon us in a cursed world. He's sent his son to redeem us and to first renew us. And then, at least in Romans 8, there seems to even promises of the renewal of creation itself. And I can't even imagine what a world without death and pain and suffering would look like, because our world is built on these concepts. I mean, even something as simple as a grain of wheat, right? It has to die before new wheat can grow. Our whole system is based on this regeneration of things dying, decomposing, going back into the earth, new life coming, growing, thriving, decaying, going back. And that is the world in which we live. And we can actually find great beauty among the pain and suffering, but I can't imagine a world without death or decay. It's it's beyond my wildest imaginings. The poor judgment, of course, could apply to all sorts of bad choices we make, that I also don't think it's fair to blame God on all the evil happening in our life, because we're simply either being disobedient or not learning from our past mistakes or not paying attention. And so I would also not call those categorically metaphysical evil. I would simply say you're kind of the idea of you're reaping what you sow, or you're simply not paying attention and things are coming upon you. Nathan earlier gave an example from the Eastern tradition. I think he called it the farmer. This is kind of like Voltaire's version of what he was trying to communicate about that, where it's about this guy who meets this hermit and all the different encounters they have. There's other Arabic and East Asian versions of this story. And I just love the story because in a Muslim version I heard, this guy's hanging out with this old man, and he goes, "Can I accompany you?" Because he was known as this renowned scholar and sage, this hermit monk type guy. And the hermit said, "You can come with me, but you cannot question anything I do, and do not try to stop me." And so the rest of the story is this hermit going around doing, from our perspective, what seem like really horrible things, from burning down a person's home to eventually pushing a young man off of a bridge to his death where he drowned. And after that last event, this young man who was traveling with the hermit couldn't take it anymore. And he's like, "I am not following you. You're the most evil person I have ever met." And in that same instant, the old hermit turned into a beautiful angel of light. And he said, "I told you not to question me." He says, "Your human perspective is limited and you do not understand." He said, "That woman's house I burned down, there was a hoard of gold buried in her walls, which she never would have found unless I would have removed that building." and all the way, and there's all these accounts that happen, and I'll just do two. And the last one, the kid he pushed off the bridge, if he would have lived, he would have raped and murdered and killed even his own family. And I love this concept because what it's portraying once again is God has the big picture, the big understanding of what is happening, and we have a very limited human perspective. And so often, what appears to be evil, unjust, or cruel to us, if we saw it in its complete context of the plan of God, we wouldn't have those same objections. And I know that's part of what I meant to start this talk with was I love having these conversations, and I think it's really important. But remember, we're in a classroom. We're all of us, as far as I can tell from the Hollywood Square screen, most of you seem to be doing well. You're comfortable. I don't see anyone in excruciating agony at the moment, even though I'm sure we all have our pains and struggles. But these answers to the problem of evil, I think it's important to think about and to have answers as best we can as humans. But I would never roll these out with someone who just lost a child or someone who just got diagnosed with a terminal illness. Or you have to think and be appropriate, right? And it's one thing to have like a speculative or interesting intellectual conversation, but think about context and what we're doing with people and what we're sharing with them. And so I'm always cautious when people ask me these kind of questions, like the problem of evil. I often want to know why, what's their intention, what their hope of getting out of it. And quite frankly, I don't know the answer to the problem of evil. And I think that's another thing that we need to become more comfortable with is telling people we don't know. That's outside of my purview of knowledge. But here are some interesting ways you can think about it. And that's what I've been trying to do for you tonight, giving you a spectrum of different ways to think about the problem of evil.